Let me see whether people. I sent the.
We're live. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining us again this week on the African Reform channel. I'm your host, Uche Nnoka, and I'm speaking to the esteemed Dr. Ni Awudako. And today we are going to be speaking about Afremocracy, the way forward. So, Dr. Ni, for those who maybe are not familiar with this expression, Afremocracy just means African democracy, correct?
Yes, it means democracy brewed in African port.
Okay.
Now,
so yeah, you go ahead and take from there. What does it actually mean? What does it look like?
Those in my generation who grew up in Ghana will be very familiar with the film by Kwanzaa, Love Brewed in African Port. Okay, it was a very film that won many awards for Kwanzaa. Now, that depicted love as a cultural commodity. Okay, it's a universal principle, but local application. And I'm saying that democracy is also a cultural commodity. So that's where I got the definition from. Okay. Afremocracy is democracy brewed in African port. Africans will have to accept the concept of democracy. Sorry, but it has to be brewed in our own port because we are a different cultural entity. Okay. Now, and not only that, but we have different challenges from Europe. We have different developmental challenges that adversarial kind of policy in Europe will not augur well for us, and it has not augured well for us. Like I told you from the very first interview, politics, as far as I am concerned, is how a people organize themselves for their own development and prosperity.
Yes.
So to organize yourself, you have to take into consideration where you are in the development ladder, and the things that I need to do, because we need 100%. We need to harness our energies, everything 100% to be able to catch up. We are way below. We are over 200 years below the rest of the world, at least 200 years behind Europe. I'm sure you are in London. You know that St. Bartholomew Hospital was built in 80,000. Okay, 80,000. It was built over 1,000 years ago. We don't have a hospital like St. Bartholomew in Ghana today. We are talking of very serious developmental defects. So we cannot organize ourselves the same way as the British for our development and prosperity. We have to do it differently, and that's where I come in.
Okay.
And that's where I come in with the issue of democracy brewed in the African port. I'm African, I'm sure you are aware of that.
Yeah, I'm aware.
Now, so I'm going to give typical African scenarios. Okay. Afremocracy, I have the book. Where is the book? This is a book. Okay. Now, this book, you see the bed there. We call the bed. This bed, we call it Sankofa. That is go back. So the bed has what they call it, overextended its neck to pick something from the back. Okay, you are going back. And this is the book. This book has got 5 chapters. The first one is the structure of the state. That's first chapter. Second chapter is separation of powers. Third chapter is new structure for government. And fourth chapter is streamlining the electoral system. And the fifth chapter is source of inspiration. Okay. Now, honestly, each chapter can take a whole day. Yeah. But I'll try and make it easy for the disciples to understand what you're talking about. Structure of the state. That's where everything begins. Like I said in the first interview, the people organize, police, how people organize themselves for their own development and prosperity. What they organize, the organization, the structure is what they call the state. So for them to develop and prosper, the state must be appropriate.
Yes.
Okay. In 1953, Nigerians met in London, what they call the Lytton Constitutional Conference. And Nigerians decided that the only way they can live together was through a federal system. It was Nigerians who met, political leaders who met in 1953 to make that decision. And that's where the Littleton then was the colonial secretary was the secretary for the colonies. And he facilitated that conference. So they named the conference after him and they named the constitution after him. Nigerians decided that, look, the way we are, the only way we can live together. So they made that arrangement. Even that, within 10, 15 years, it collapsed through Biafra.
Wow.
Okay. Now, that tells you that, and today, as we are talking now, there are agitations from everywhere. Do people want this people want this people want that, because they still feel that that organization, that structure is not serving them.
Yeah.
Well, okay. And when you have such energy being spent on the structure, very little is left for development. Mind you, energy is the same. Okay. It either brings light or it brings heat. When you use your energy to generate heat, there'll be little left for light. And that's what's happening in Nigeria. That's happening almost everywhere. But I'm coming with Afremocracy that will take the heat out and bring more light.
Okay.
Now, Ghana did not have that conference. Now, I know I'm pushing you because you don't know the history of Ghana. Well, you don't have to worry because 90% of Ghanaians don't know what I'm going to tell you anyway.
Well, that's fine. I love to learn. I love hearing. I love educating myself. So that's fine.
Now, after 1954, we had an election in 1954 prior to our independence. And CPB Nkrumah government won 72 seats out of the 104. So they had more than two-thirds of the votes. But just after that, another group came up, what they call the National Liberation Movement, Ashanti-based National Liberation Movement, and they came with the agenda that they want a federal system. Nkrumah wanted a unity system. Now, Ashanti came with that for many reasons, but one key reason is that Ashanti itself was a federal state. It was a pentapolis, a state built on 5 principal states, which operated in the federal fashion, okay, with Asantini as the overall boss, but the paramount chiefs had significant autonomy. So they've been used to a federal system for 250 years. Nkrumah came, and Nkrumah defined himself as a non-denominational Marxist. So he was a communist, okay? So he had a different idea of the state, and he believed that the way forward was a unitary state, where all power will be in one person's hand, all power will be in one party, and all power will be in one place, which is the capital. Well, he never lived in a communist state. He lived in America, which was a federal system, and lived in the UK, which at that time was unitary. But he actually never lived in a communist system. He knew it as a theory. Anyway, it got to a point where there was no way forward. There was a stalemate. So Nkrumah asked the Queen to send one of his most reputable constitutional lawyers, Sir Frederick Byrne, who was deeply involved in dividing India into India and Pakistan. He was one of the constitutional experts who worked that thing. So he was sent to Ghana in 1955. Actually, Nkrumah invited him to come to Ghana in 1955. This is very important. This background is very important to what I'm going to talk about. And he came. Now, I think he came September 1955, and he toured the country for about 5 weeks or something, and he wrote his recommendation for the Constitution of Ghana, moving forward to independence. This was in 1955. And he suggested something which you call regionalism, which was midway between a unitary state and a federal state. Now, he suggested that the 5 regions of Ghana should have their own regional assemblies, like parliaments, okay? And then some functions should be devolved to those regional assemblies, mainly service kind of staff, and then we'll have the central government in Accra. This was supposed to be the state of Ghana at independence. It was an entrenched provision in the constitution that can only be removed with 2/3 of parliamentary approval.
Mhm.
Now, we had another election in 1956 that led to the independence. And there, Nkrumah got 71 seats out of 104. So Nkrumah got 68%, more than 2/3.
Okay.
So just after, I'm just summarizing everything, just after independence, Nkrumah repealed this. He repealed the regional assembly concept, and Ghana became the unity state we are today. This is where it started.
Okay.
Now, I believe that structure is flawed and completely wrong. And that's why the first chapter of Afremocracy is the structure of the state. What structure will be able to harness our collective energies for development and prosperity? And I have come out with what I call economic federalism. Now, economic federalism is different from what the NLM wanted in 1956. They wanted ethnic federalism, like you have in Nigeria,
which isn't good.
where the boundaries are based on ethnicity. No, I do not believe that. I believe that what we need to do in economic federalism, which is a new thing that I've written about, that you won't find in any book, as a matter of fact, is that Ghana as a country, we have to decide that, well, not that we have to decide. The principle is this: there are three factors of production. Okay, classically, there are three factors of production: labor, land, capital. Okay. Now, this will move into Afremocracy at a later stage.
Okay.
Now, how do we organize ourselves that development to be even and prosperity to be fair? I believe that it has to depend on labor. If you have two states of similar population, then you have two states of possible fair economic development and distribution of wealth. Okay, so I said that instead of using ethnic boundaries, we should divide Ghana into states between 8 to 10% of a population will form a state. So that it's very easy. If you are giving 10 people 10 cedis, you give 8 people 8 cedis. If you are giving 100 people 100 cedis, you give 80 people 80 cedis. Now, when you divide your states in that proportion, then you are giving each state the opportunity to have the same labor pool.
Okay.
Okay, or to have similar labor pool. Because what I have realized is that the weaker regions of Ghana, they've all collapsed. They all move into the center because the population there is weak, and they move to the center. And as they move, they become weaker, and they move more, and they become weaker, and they move more. So you have to start with population. All services are geared towards human beings, population. There's no economic skill to build a hospital for 100 people and build another one for 20 people. Because there are fixed costs in infrastructure. There are fixed costs in infrastructure. Whether there are 10 people there or 20 people there, there are fixed costs. But when you have the maximum people in the place, they realize that the cost is shared over the people. And that is one area of economic skill. So I said, look, we decide that each state will be 8 to 10% of the population. Now, each state being 8 to 10% of the population, then we're going to divide each state into 5 districts. And we divide each district into 5 constituencies, equal population. Now, each state will then have its own parliament. Each state, yes, each state of 10% people will have its own parliament of 30 people or 31 or whatever. Now, and each state will have its own mini government. Okay.
Why that way? Why do you think that's the best option? As opposed to like what we have here, we have like one government ruling the entire country. Okay, apart from Scotland, Wales, and Ireland, they have their own.
Yes, now I'll come to that. You see, what Sir Frederick Bain suggested to Ghana in 1955, that's what UK adopted in 1997 with the opening of the Scottish Parliament, followed by that of Wales, and then Northern Ireland. What you have in England now is regionalism, because you have chief minister taking over certain aspects of service provision. Okay, but they get block funding from London.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. They get block funding from London, but they have their own governments there. Mini government doing, and that's what I'm talking about here. Except that in UK, you are still having ethnic regionalism. It's based on Scottish people, it's based on Welsh people, it's based on Irish people. Whereas in Ghana, it's not based on ethnicity, but population.
Okay.
So we say that, okay, this region is 5% of people, this other region is 4% of people, we put them together, 9%. They fall within the 8 to 10%. We say, okay, this region is 20%, we divide into 2. Because it's too big to manage as 20%. We divide into 2. One is 10%, the other one is 10%. So we are moving outside ethnicity to numbers. Whereas it's the similar thing you have in the UK, except that in UK, is Scottish people, they are about 5 million, Welsh about 2 million, nothing like that, about whatever. In your case, numbers don't matter. We are talking about ethnicity. We are talking about numbers. But you're going to have the same parliament. Now, what I'm saying is this. If we have not repealed the Regional Assembly in 1957, we'll be 40 years ahead of UK in constitutional development. Because what you have there now was what was suggested to us in 1955 to have regional assemblies. And that's what you have in UK. Now you realize that NHS, you have NHS England, NHS Scotland. NHS is not controlled in Scotland from London. So why must health in Ashanti region be controlled from Accra?
Okay, I see what you're saying. I get it. Yeah.
Okay. So within that state parliament, there are 6 portfolios that we have. We have health, education, law and order, power and water, agric and industries, and then housing, infrastructure, and transport. These 6 core service areas will be handled by state parliaments. Then all other things will be handled from the federal level, from the national level. Okay, these are the things that make a society tick. Now we are talking of how to organize ourselves for development and prosperity. We are living in Ghana today, where the president appoints every regional minister, even in regions that he lost. And it's not about this particular government. No, it's not about this particular government. It's about every government.
Okay. Yeah.
And the president appoints every district chief executive or mayor, even in districts that he lost elections. Sometimes he lost by 80%.
Oh.
The president appoints everything in Ghana, and therefore there's only one way of thinking. If the president gets it wrong at that level, it flows down right to the very bottom. Now, that is anti-innovation. That is anti-creativity. That is anti-everything that augurs well for development and prosperity. Now, all the regions are not the same. Okay, all the regions are not the same. I know people always like to talk about natural. I'm not interested in natural resources. Okay, because the most important resource is human resource. But how would this? I mean, I won't go into details as to how the parliament will be constituted and blah 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 and all those things. But we'll talk about funding. What's the time now, by the way?
It was 1920. But I just want to back up slightly. I see in principle what you're saying. I can see it. My question is, if Ghana is the way it is now, like with the problems that it's having, like with the leadership not doing what it's supposed to do in order to cause the country to thrive, will that not just still happen, but on a more local level? What will the difference be in terms of if it's a mindset issue and people's minds haven't evolved to a place where it can bring the country up to its full potential? Will it not just be the same thing, just in smaller quantities?
Yeah. It's definitely a mindset, but one thing you also have to understand is that systems matter.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, systems matter. Some systems are better than other systems.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so for instance, in this particular context, in Australia, we have 8 states and territories, 6 states and 2 territories.
Mm-hmm.
Now, as we're talking right now, the national government is from the Conservatives, but they govern only 3 of the 8 states and territories. The other 5 governments, state governments, are from Labour, from opposition parties. But everything, and because of that, there is more capacity. Just by itself, there's more capacity because you don't have one party controlling everything in the country.
Mm-hmm.
And in the case of Ghana, what it means is that it gives people also the space to participate in their local environment. Because, okay, for instance, now as it is, there's always complaint about marginalization of some people, especially minorities.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now, when you have a system like that, the minorities also know that even in their own minority, in their own state, they also have some power to do things for themselves. And we are talking of how to organize ourselves for development and prosperity. How do we bring everybody in? How do we make it inclusive that people do not feel that they are just at the periphery?
Mm-hmm.
So what you are doing, you are thinking about the philosophy behind your politics.
Mm-hmm.
Because when you have a system like that and you have state governments, then within the state, you realize that it's very likely that almost every ethnic group in that state will be represented, because you're going to have districts and constituencies which are inhabited by people from different ethnicities. But as it is now, there's no such a system. As it is now, we have a very horrible system of district, what they call local assemblies.
Mm-hmm.
These assemblies. Now, the state assemblies, 70% of them are elected, but the president also appoints 30%. So for the president to have control over this assembly, he needs only to have 20% from those who are elected, because he already has 30% in his pocket. In the end, the assemblies are all for the president anyway. All right.
Can I ask you a question? Do you think the infrastructure exists for what you're proposing to actually happen?
Yes. Easy. Actually,
Yeah.
it's a smaller infrastructure to what we have now.
Right.
What we have now, from Accra to Paga in the north and across, we have over 7,000 politicians working as either elected assembly members or appointed by government. Over 8,000.
Mm-hmm.
What I'm talking about, you're going to have a total of probably 286. Way much smaller. Way much smaller. Just multiply 31 by 11. How much does it come to?
Oh, gosh.
It's a small number. Never mind.
Yeah.
See, we have a much smaller bureaucracy. Much smaller bureaucracy. And it doesn't end there. There are other things I've been spoken about in terms of how do we, so at the state level, how do we organize the district level? That would be another discussion on its own.
Yeah.
You see, and I call it the compass system, because when you come to, let's take one state, okay? So let's call the state Nnoka. Okay. State Nnoka has got 31 members of parliament, or 32 members of parliament. Now, these members of parliament, they are coming from 5 districts. Okay. Because each district has got 5 constituencies. Okay. So 5 constituencies plus 5 districts means 25 MPs. So now 25 MPs will be elected directly. And then the remaining 7 MPs will be, I use the ratio 80 to 20. So 80% of the members of parliament will be elected directly, and 20% will be elected through the state traditional authorities. Okay, that'll be under discussion. State traditional authorities. So we have 32 or 31, whatever. Now, what it means is that every district has got at least 6 MPs. Every district has got at least 6 MPs. These 6 MPs, they are going to form what they call the District Executive Committee. Okay, they form the District Executive, and the one who will be chosen to be the leader of the District Executive Committee becomes the mayor. Now you have to understand that this person has been elected to Parliament. So we are basically merging the state government with local government. Okay, every district has got at least 6 MPs.
Okay.
Okay, every district has got at least 6 MPs. Now, these 6 MPs, they are going to implement. So then they're going to have a spokesperson for health for the district, a spokesperson for education for the district, a spokesperson for law and order for the district, a spokesperson for power and water for the district, a spokesperson for agriculture and industry for the district, and a spokesperson for housing, infrastructure and transport for a district. Now, these 6 core services will be taken from the state level to a district level, and one of the six will be the mayor for the district.
Okay, just want to stop you there. There's a question that's just coming from Anthony Aqua, and he says this: how can the natural resources of Ghana that are not infinite not play a crucial part in the development of the country, and should this not be the 7th area to be included?
7th area to be included in what?
Say some more.
Oh no, okay. You see, okay, I understand. You see, now the natural resources is not service provision. These 6 areas are the core service provision area. Natural resources largely will be handled by national government. Okay, now the 6 areas here, they refer to areas that affect the people directly: health, education, law and order, water and power, and all those things. Natural resources is supposed to be handled by national government. Okay, so it's not an area of service provision. So my answer to the lady is that no, it's not a 7th area because it's not actually a service area.
Yes, there's a gentleman, Anthony Aqua. Anthony was asking.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, Anthony. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So Anthony, Tony. Natural resources is not a service area. We are talking of service area to states that affect the people directly. Natural resources, gold, oil, whatever, they are in the destiny of national government, not state government, like happens everywhere. In Australia, what happens with natural resources is that, of course, it's a federal country, royalties are paid to the state, but tax is paid to the government. So they say, and government, where government has shares, is actually the national government that has shares. Sorry.
Okay. Dr. Nee, we have just over a minute left. In summary, what would you like to say?
In summary, I think these classes will have to go on, like we said, twice a week, because there's so much to talk about.
Yeah. And I want to make sure you have the time to do it. I don't want to keep on interrupting. I want you to have the scope to really share your heart so people can hear and understand you.
Because next time, I mean, just talking about funding and how the system will operate, actually take under 30 minutes where the funding will come in from. Okay, how do we fund the state so that there's a little bit of fairness, and how do we develop a state on the basis of what I'm saying? You see, because the unity state intrinsically means one city development model. With economic federalism, we have the multi-city development. Because and you saw that in Nigeria. When we went to South Africa, we had only two medical schools in Ghana, and Nigeria had 25. Because every state was getting its own medical school. Every state was doing its own stuff. And that's what happens when you have a multi-city development, which is intrinsic to federalism.
Okay. I'm going to stop you there. I'm going to stop you there, Dr. Nee. Sorry, our time is indeed up. I want to thank you so much. Thank you, Anthony, for submitting your question, and thank you to everybody who's logged and joined us. Please follow Dr. Nee on his social media handles on the bottom of your screen, and we will be back again on Wednesday. We're going to be going live Wednesdays and Saturdays at 12 noon. So please join us. And if you have any questions, please feel free to drop us a line on our live chat, and I'll make sure I get that to Dr. Nee. Okay. Once again, thank you for watching and have a wonderful weekend. Thank you, Dr. Nee.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Much appreciated. Bye.
No problem. Bye-bye.